Welcome to Trader Talk, where we dish out the latest Wall Street buzz to keep your portfolio sizzling. I'm Kenny Polcari, coming to you live from the iconic New York Stock Exchange, a place that's been my home for decades and still fuels the pulse of capitalism, entrepreneurship, and freedom. Now, let's jump into my big take for the week. Turn on the TV, open the YouTube, scroll your feed, and there are all the financial gurus shouting predictions with godlike confidence. Stocks to buy now, crash warnings, millionaire blueprints. They look slick, they talk fast, they package themselves as shortcut to riches. But here's the truth. No one likes to say it out loud. Most of these gurus aren't in the markets. They're in marketing. The more certain someone sounds about the future of the market, the less you should trust them. Because real investors, those who've spent decades in the trenches, don't speak in absolutes. They speak in probabilities. They know no one can predict the market consistently, and they certainly don't promise you guaranteed returns in exchange for a subscription fee. Why does this work? Because uncertainty is uncomfortable. So when someone steps up and says, "I've cracked the code," people listen. Even when it's snake oil wrapped in financial jargon. Even when they're selling fear, or worse, hope. But real investing is messy. It's slow. It's full of risk and mistakes and adjustments. There's no cheating code, just hard-earned discipline. Bottom line, if someone's selling you an illusion of certainty, they're not a guru, they're a salesperson. You don't need louder voices, you need clearer thinking. Trust the process, not the pitch. Okay, joining us today is my friend Chris Versace, Chief Investment Officer at thematic Research, where he leads the development of thematic investing that align portfolios with powerful long-term trends like digital transformation, aging demographics, and the rise of the connected consumer. Chris is also the co-author of Cocktail Investing and a veteran equity analyst with a deep background in technology, consumer, and industrial sectors. He spent years helping investors understand how big picture shifts translate into actionable stock ideas. Please join me in welcoming Chris Versace. Chris, it is a pleasure to have you here at the New York Stock Exchange, a place for me that feels like home.
I'm so happy to be here, Kenny. You are right. We have known each other for some time.
We have.
I just hope that I live up to that very nice introduction.
Absolutely live up. But let's start by talking about thematic investing and what thematic research is. So educate the crowd just a little bit about what it is.
So I got started a long time ago. I mean, I almost hate to say how long ago at this point, just as a regular sell-side equity analyst. And, I wound up covering a certain sector, right? Where you're responsible for understanding the puts, the takes, the industry dynamics.
Everything about that sector.
That sector. Only that sector.
Right.
And at times you're in favor, you're out of favor. But as I was doing this, I kind of sat back and said, there are things happening here that if I don't have a vertical approach, if I took a horizontal approach, boy, can I connect the dots and get something pretty interesting.
Right.
So this started to give rise to this thematic framework where we look for the shifting landscapes of economics, demographics, psychographics, technology, regulatory mandates when they happen, and what we're trying to identify structural change and the companies that are poised to benefit from them. Not all companies are. Some companies, will they get left behind?
Right.
You bet they will. But that's really, to us, what thematic investing is about. It's about identifying structural change.
Okay, but so does it really work in today's environment, today's technology environment? Like, give me an example. Talk to me about how you would maybe create a thematic portfolio.
Well, let's see. We haven't created one in a little bit of time, but we actually have about 24 thematic models that we have.
Okay.
Everything from aging of population, AI, digital infrastructure.
Are they ETFs or are they just models?
These are just models. We do
individual names.
With a basket of 6 to 8 names.
Right.
But we also have taken some of these strategies into Europe, where we've got some ETFs as well. One is cybersecurity, the other is sustainable future of food. We had a few others, at one point in time, but those are the two that we have now with our partners over there.
Right. So, is thematic a consumer? Like, is the retail investor going to go to you, or is it an institutional platform?
So I would say that today, it's primarily institutional clients and RIAs, but I don't want to get too far ahead of myself.
Right.
But if we talk, Kenny, let's say second half of the year, fourth quarter, we might have something to share.
That's interesting. I look forward to that. I'd look because now I left my years here at the New York Stock Exchange, of which I will say it was 4 decades.
Right.
That sounds better than 40 years.
It does.
But
it
4
does.
decades sounds better. But I left after being an institutional broker, servicing the institutional community, and now I sit on the other side, right? So I'm the chief market strategist at SlateStone Wealth, which is an independent RIA.
Right.
So I'd be very interested to hear what you have to say come towards the end of the year. So let's just make sure we mark our calendars.
Already done.
All right, so let's talk about the markets.
Sure.
So let's talk about this recent recovery. We had to sell off in April after Liberation Day, and many of us got liberated from our money, I like to say, right?
Right.
But some of it's come back. In fact, you see some of those names that got absolutely crushed are actually higher today than they were on April 2nd.
True.
And so the market has rebounded a little bit. Tell me, first of all, before we get into the Moody's downgrade, into China's now kind of maybe pulled back on this whole 90-day thing that they announced this morning, but talking about where you think the market is.
Today, just as we're sitting here.
Yeah.
So, coming out of last week, if we look at the relative strength index levels, S&P 500 flirting with overbought, NASDAQ back in overbought territory. Not surprising, right?
No, not at all.
We've had huge runs in both of those market indices.
Right.
But we don't buy the market, right? We
Right.
pay attention. We're mindful of the market and where it is.
Yeah.
But, we're continuing to look for names that are well-positioned based on some of our themes and others that we can be opportunistic in.
Right. So what I always love is when someone asks me, is it too late? Is it too late for me to get in the market? Is it too late? I go, it's never too late to get into the market. A, because there's always opportunity, but B, tell me where you are in your life cycle. Are you talking about getting in the market for a month or 5 years?
Right.
Because then there's always opportunity in the market, yeah?
I think that's right. I think you got to be mindful, though, of there's not always as much opportunity
Agreed.
at any particular time.
Agreed.
And I think after the rise that we've seen, right, if you were able to put money to work, like I manage, I should say, the Street's Pro portfolio, basket of
TheStreet.com's Pro portfolio.
Correct. Right. Thank you. And it's a real portfolio, 25 stocks.
Yep.
Today, sometimes more, sometimes less.
Is it a range of sectors?
It leverages some of the thematics that we have, the thematica, and some other areas that we want purposeful exposure. That's what I will say. We're not as broad-based as the S&P 500.
Right.
We don't have to have exposure in every sector, right? We want companies that are poised to outperform the market.
Right.
So.
In whatever sectors you're
Correct.
in. So,
Correct.
So on that portfolio, of the 11 major S&P sectors, what are you representing?
Oh, good God. I don't think of it that way.
Okay.
I hate to shatter that thought. And the reason I say that is if you get back to thematics,
Right.
Think of a company like Amazon.
Right.
What's the sector? What's the right sector?
Yeah,
for
right.
it?
You're right. Could fall in a bunch of different sectors.
Right. Or Apple these days, or
Right.
even Disney, you could argue, right? So I try not to get caught up in that.
So what's the biggest, in your mind currently, what's kind of the biggest theme out there that investors and traders should know about?
We're not going to break any new ground with this,
Right.
okay, with this revelation.
Right.
But I would say that today where we stand, especially coming out of where we were, 6-8 weeks ago,
Yeah.
and the potential going forward, it's going to be AI. And I say that largely because, yes, we know about NVIDIA and Marvell and all these other companies, but I also think about connecting the dots and the ripple effects. Right. So if we think about the demand for data center, the construction of data center, we think
Which
about
people, sometimes people aren't thinking like that.
No, I know,
Right.
and it's like one of my favorite things to do, not to get sidetracked, is when you go through earnings season and you read all the transcripts and you pick up all these data points and you literally connect the dots. Right. So it's there's the stock that you want. There's the math major. First derivative, second derivative, and sometimes you can use those data points up and down. Right. So I just love doing that, and I find it very helpful. So I try to do that when we invest in the portfolio, but also tie it back to our themes as well. So for example, if we're going to build all these data centers, right, you need equipment to build them.
Right.
You need electricity to power them.
Exactly.
So, if you were to say, well, Chris, it sounds like you might be long United Rentals or Vulcan Materials or Eaton, and Waste Management has to haul all this crap away. Yes.
Right. Well, what about names like Dominion and CEG that are getting into the nuclear space, right? Because they're utilities.
Now, nuclear is interesting.
Very interesting.
Right? So we own the Van Eck, I'll botch this name, but it's the Van Eck Uranium and Nuclear ETF, and we have a nuclear model over at Thematica.
Right.
Now, you need to be careful with this, right? Because I want to benefit from companies and the spending they have. So when I think about Dominion Power, Duke Energy, the utilities,
Right.
at least as it relates to building out the electrical grid, they're spenders. So I'm not going to buy them, right? It's almost like if you want to buy the 5G build out, you're not going to buy AT&T because they need to spend to build the network.
Right.
I want to buy the companies that are benefiting from that spending. That kind of brings us back to Eaton, and there are some other names out there.
Okay, that's interesting. I hadn't thought about it that way. Right?
That's why we're talking.
That's why we're talking. I appreciate that. Wait, so talk to me also about quantum computing. Is that a theme at all that makes sense, or does it not yet?
Yeah, it's there's a lot of potential themes out there.
Yeah.
Right? And you kind of need to hit a tipping point, right? And there are individual stocks that are going to be disruptive, but there's not a fully baked, comprehensive theme out there.
Right.
So, like, I'll give you an example. One of the companies that we own in the portfolio is Universal Display. They help manufacture the key chemicals that go into organic light emitting diode displays. And we're seeing widespread adoption.
Wait, what kind of displays?
Organic light emitting diodes, or OLED displays. Your iPhone has it. You're going to start seeing them in a lot more
An
places.
OLED display. That's
Trust
what they
me.
call it. OLED.
OLEDs, yeah. So you can look at them in TV, smartphones, tablets, and a growing array of automotive interior lighting, displays there. And I think even United in their new Polaris cabin is having some nice OLED displays as
All right,
well.
so hold that thought 1 minute, because
Yeah.
we'll be right back after this short break.
Sure.
All right, so let's go back to talk about the OLED, because that's fascinating to me. So talk to me about what's different. What makes that different than the displays maybe 5 years ago?
Oh, so you're talking against LCDs or liquid crystal displays?
Right.
Couple different things. One, organic light emitting diodes, they are individual pixels, right? So you can get deeper blacks, which is great for TVs and all of
I
that.
look good in black.
You definitely do. Definitely do. You would pop on the OLED display, right? So there's that, right? But then at the same time, because it's or light emitting diode, it's actually less power consumption, and it allows for thinner displays, and as we'll probably see more of, foldable displays. So you think of Samsung's Galaxy folding their phones, right? That's that. Apple is rumored to have one of those in the next few years. Foldable tablets. This is kind of where it's going. And Universal is a key company in that it supplies chemicals to all the major display manufacturing companies.
What's it? Universal?
Universal Display, ticker symbol OLED.
OLED.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I hadn't even heard about these displays. I think that's great. I'll have to take a look.
Yeah.
Wait, let me ask another question. You made another point, is that these displays use less energy.
Less power, and they're thinner.
Right.
That's why if you notice how thin smartphones have become, you may not notice it because everybody's got a case on them.
Yeah.
But you pull off the case, you see how thin they are.
they are.
You see how thin Apple's new iPad Pros are compared to other iPads.
Yeah.
The display.
My iPad's, I guess, 3 years old or so.
Time to upgrade,
And
Kenny.
but it's pretty thin, but it's in a case itself.
No Apple Intelligence in that device.
I know that, but there's Apple Intelligence in my iPhone. You know what I mean? Speaking about the intelligence, I have to tell you, have you used Grok?
I have used a lot of them,
Right.
but not Grok.
I think Grok, listen, I think they're all good, but Grok, for some reason,
Better?
feels better to me.
Okay.
When I use it, it just feels better. Like the data it produces and I don't know where its sources are, but it just feels.
Well, that's the key, though, right? I mean,
100%.
It's all about the array of data that it can tap. And
Right.
if you think of all that, X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it, has,
Right.
that's a tremendous amount of information to mine from.
100%.
But I will say this, though. That's also why I don't think you can rule Google out. When you think of what they have in search and YouTube.
Yeah, no, I don't know. No, I agree with you. I think the whole thing is fascinating, and I think ChatGPT does a great job. And when it first started, I was using ChatGPT.
For recipes?
No. When I would ask it a question, if I need to clarify something.
Okay.
But you can use it to clarify a recipe.
Do you know what else you can do with that?
What?
You can make a recipe,
Yeah.
get your ingredients,
Yes.
and then you can export it to Instacart.
Okay, you can?
Yes, you can. There's a tool you have to get, but you can do it.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. I never thought about that.
No.
Anyway, what I'll tell you is that, so then when they put Grok on the Twitter platform, and you're a premium user, then it, the little button's right there at the
Yeah, yeah.
bottom, and you pop it open. Here's the only thing I'll say is if I ask it one question, and I'm still in that same thread, and then I ask it a different question, it'll try to tie the second question to the first question and
Right.
keep the theme going when it's two separate thoughts. And so I always have to, check out and then check back in and start a new thread so that it doesn't continue to try to create that same
I
conversation.
think you should tell Elon this.
Yeah, well, okay, Elon, are you listening? All right, so let's talk about, is there hype or what's real? And this whole AI thing that he's now done that Trump did, he just came back from the Mideast, had some massive conversations with some of the country, United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, that they are all plunging deep into AI, building massive data centers over there in the middle of the desert. Does that concern you?
Concern? I don't think that's the right word. I think that, why would we think that AI and the data center build out is only going to be
in the U.S. Right.
So that's the way I think about it.
Right.
Technology is global, right?
100%.
We're not the only country with smartphones.
Right.
Right. So I'm not surprised that this is going to happen.
Right.
I think it's got some great implications. Again, a lot of the names that we just talked about, some of them on the construction side
Yep.
are more U.S. based. But if we think about NVIDIA, Marvell, and the like, this is great.
Yeah, no, I think they'll be huge beneficiaries of what's going on over there. I mean, especially if you hear the conversation, the commitments, kind of what they're looking to do, and they want to be a player in the space, and they should be.
Right. But back it up too, though. So, a couple of months ago, I think NVIDIA's CEO Jensen Huang said, "Oh, I see $1 trillion build out in data center."
Right.
This is all part of that.
Yeah,
Right?
100%.
And I think we'll hear more from other countries, over time. And I suspect that as we use AI more, as it gets in the enterprise more devices, right? What's going to happen? You're going to need more data centers.
Right.
You're going to need to upgrade the digital infrastructure.
But it's more energy demands, right?
Oh,
when they
without a
talk
doubt.
about waning energy, the
No.
energy demand is not waning.
No, it's growing.
I think there's a massive oversupply of energy, which is fine, but I don't think demand is waning at all.
If we're talking electrical energy,
Yeah.
100%.
Right? Just not happening.
No.
All right, let's talk real quick about we came through the first quarter. Earnings are growing. I think they're growing what, about 15% year over year. Is that what the number was?
Full year 2025, right? That's what you're talking about?
Well, what, the first quarter?
The first quarter? Yeah, I think that's
somewhere up in the double digits.
Yes, yeah,
Right,
I think
so
that's right.
What do you think about the second quarter now?
Well, I'm a little more concerned about the second quarter.
Are you?
Yeah, well, we'll see the full impact of tariffs,
Yeah.
right? We'll see potential price increases.
Retailers are going to come out, any
Soon.
day now. Soon.
Yeah.
They're going to start to report. So it's going to be interesting. The Walmart CEO made that comment
Yes, he
about
did.
passing on these price hikes, these tariffs on to consumers, and Trump right away, shot back at
I
it.
saw that.
Yeah, telling him.
Well,
to
it
just eat it.
wasn't even that, though. You remember a couple of weeks ago where Amazon was going to list the impact of tariffs, and the administration got on them, and they backpedaled
Well,
pretty
but
quickly.
the argument was, why didn't you do that during the Biden years when inflation was running at 9.4%?
Well-
Why didn't you break it out and show what that impact was?
I think that's a little harder to quantify than tariffs.
Well, okay, it might be, except prices were going up every month.
no,
Prices were going up. With tariffs, they're going to go up once and then adjust.
No one's arguing about what
Right.
happened during the Biden years. We all know. We all lived through it. My wallet was a little lighter.
Right.
So, but again, I think companies are responding to this because people are concerned.
Right.
And I understand that. But I also think, though, that the concern I have is this, okay? When was the last time you went to the grocery store, Kenny, and you got a box of cereal or you got a bag of coffee?
Yeah.
And prices were going up, and then those prices you were paying came down as other prices and pressures came down.
I haven't seen it yet.
Doesn't happen.
I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, that's
and I
my
go
point.
I go shopping. Listen.
I know.
Listen, little secret. I love to go grocery
So
shopping.
do I.
I don't know what it is.
It's like a treasure.
I
it's like a treasure
love
hunt.
to go grocery
It's
shopping.
a treasure hunt.
Yeah. So I haven't seen that yet.
Yeah, you're never going to see
Right.
it. Just like a pound of coffee, comes in a 10 to 12 ounce bag.
Yeah.
And a pound of coffee last time I thought was supposed
16 ounces.
That's right.
Yeah, right. They do the same thing with peanut butter. They put that hole in the bottom of the jar a little bit bigger. It's less peanut butter, so it's the same price. I get it, but I think unless there's a full-blown recession, then I don't think you're going to see prices come down. They'll stop going up,
Agreed.
and then once again, people just kind of get used to it, right?
Right. So-
you're just hoping that wages start to increase.
Right. So what I'm wondering just about retailers. So near term, I think there's going to be a little bit of pain for them.
Yeah.
Right. I think we're going to have to watch their margins. We're going to have to see, are they going to announce further price increases? I think they will.
Right.
What's the impact of what we've seen at the ports and, supply shortages in the short term? But if we do get these trade deals and tariffs are ultimately brought lower, then the question becomes,
Right. Does the price go lower?
They don't. And
Well-
if they don't, what does that mean for their margins? Margins go back up.
Right, but if they don't, if the tariff deals are not necessarily as onerous as they were made out to be, and it doesn't look like, by the way, that that's going to happen. I think they're not going to be as onerous as.
Well, that's the goal. That's
right.
The goal is to reset global trade.
That's right, which I think is okay. I think it's okay to have these conversations and renegotiate trade agreements that are decades old. The
Agreed.
world changes. So I have no problem with that. But if they're not as onerous, if some of these companies started raising prices and then the tariffs aren't nearly as bad, to your point, are they going to come down? Is Trump going to call people out and say, whoa, 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 whoa?
That's a great question.
It's a great question.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, and this is not a popular thought, but ultimately, companies are responsible to their shareholders.
100%.
Right. So if they can improve their profits and drive their EPS,
which I think is exactly, Walmart's not responding. Walmart's responding to their shareholders. They're not responding, they're not saying I'm going to raise prices because they're trying to stick it. They want to maintain their margins for their shareholders.
Correct.
I mean, let's call for what it is.
No, 100%.
Right. Anyway, listen, it has been a pleasure. I hope we get to do this again. I want you to come back in 3 or 4 months and we'll revisit this whole conversation.
I look forward to
We're
it.
going to see what they're doing over in the Mideast, what's happened here in the United States, what tariffs have and have not done, and kind of where we stand.
And maybe we'll have some thematic stuff to talk about.
I hope so. In the meantime, I end every podcast with a recipe. And so today it's spring now in New York City. It's spring across America. So I want to introduce the spring pasta. Now, this pasta is a vibrant celebration of the season, right? It's featuring an al dente ditalini pasta tossed with tender asparagus, sweet peas, and sauteed leeks and shallots. A creamy sauce born from mascarpone cheese, a basil pesto, and fresh parmigiana. It coats every single bite. You add a splash of lemon juice to just awaken all the flavors. Pair that with a chilled glass of Pinot Grigio. My favorite is Santa Margherita, and it's a fresh, elegant dish that captures the essence of every spring in every mouthful. You can scan the QR code on the screen for the full recipe, and you'll thank me later. Now look, that's a wrap for today's Trader Talk, but the conversation keeps going. You can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, or wherever you get your podcasts. You got questions or topics you want covered? Email us at tradertalk@yahooinc.com because I'm always listening. Until next time, stay sharp, stay disciplined, and stay in touch. Take good care.
This content was not intended to be financial advice and should not be used as a substitute for professional financial services.